Hello friends and welcome. Today we're going to talk about Snapfire. She's one of the most popular heroes in the DPC right now, really just carrying that trend over from TI-10. Even though she got a couple nerfs, pro teams are still finding her very valuable to pick in the first phase quite frequently. The reason for that is a couple things. One, she's very flexible, so she can be a 4 or 5 position, and in the past she was even a core hero. Now that's not happening right now, but what it does mean is that when she has a good game, she does still scale quite well. Not enough to be a core, but for a support it's like, wow, that's kind of crazy. So you'll see that still happening in the pro games, and you can probably do it in your pubs a little more often than that. Now besides being flexible, whether you play her as a 4 or a 5, she's gonna have a lot of impact. First of all, her ultimate is really strong, as long as a team drafts any kind of setup for her, and you'll see that a lot in these examples we're going to go through later. You can get a kill. No matter how poorly your team is doing in the early game, Mortimer's Kisses is enough damage to kill really the whole team if they're all clumped together. So you can always find a kill or two every 2 minutes when the ultimate is up, and it gets a little lower cooldown as you go. Besides her ultimate though, she has her 3 other abilities, and they're all pretty good. So she has a bit flexible build skill-wise depending on the game. She can enable certain heroes, be very impactful in ganks, no matter what build she does, but still fit the game. Her item build is also flexible along with that skill build, and that just means she's a very safe first pick for pros and for your pubs. So why don't we take a look at it in action. Here, Crit is playing Snapfire in the position 4 role, and what he's going to do is this Little Shredder build. Now, if you're going to do a Little Shredder build, that means you are maxing Little Shredder first, and you're probably also going to max Fire Snap Cookie. I did say she has a flexible build, so sometimes you'll see a value point in Scatter Blast, but the more common build is just to max these 2 first and completely skip Q, and of course grabbing your ult when you need to. Now, if you're going to do this build, then you're going to get a Blightstone, and you would like to get some right-click items as well, maybe a couple Iron Branches or a Fairy Fire. Crit earlier bought a Sentry as well to block this camp, and you'll see he has a Clarity queued up, but he didn't start with anything. That's because Little Shredder is very cheap, 50 mana, and a fairly long cooldown at 24 seconds. And what that means is you can pretty much use this off cooldown without really affecting your mana. Until you get level 2, when Fire Snap Cookie, that's going to cost you a bit more mana, but you're only going to use it when you see a good trade. So again, not an extremely mana intensive hero, but you will want some kind of mana regen later to keep up the aggressive potential. Now, as the lane begins, you'll see he's just going to start poking and using Little Shredder when it is convenient for him. He wants to get off the full 6 attacks, so he's not just going to pop it when they're almost out of range, almost out of sight. You see there, Ricky walked up a little close, so he's just going to go ahead and use Little Shredder. He's not really trying to kill him right now, he's just harassing him with his very cheap spell. You can see his mana's not really having any issues right now. And then again here, just harassing with the Little Shredder. The negative armor synergizes with his Blightstone to get a nice chunk of damage out. Now you don't always have to use Little Shredder, even though it is pretty cheap. You can just right-click the enemies and chase them around because your attack stats are not bad. They're not the greatest, but they're decent. You can just kind of like chase people and poke, and because you're a strength hero, you're not too likely to die, not compared to some of the more fragile supports out there. And right here you can see an attempt at a level 2 kill, ideally, but just a good trade would also work. But unfortunately, Ricky is able to leap away. Now, different carries who have that ability to dodge Cookie are going to be annoying for Snapfire. It's not impossible to play, and you see they did try for it. And if you land that combo, it's going to be very effective. But ideally, you play against heroes that don't have that kind of mobility to dodge Cookie. For example, Jakiro has no form of mobility, so you can easily land this combo. Now you'll notice there, Crit used the Cookie on Mars. Technically, it doesn't matter. You could use it on yourself or Mars, and depending on the situation, you may do one or the other. But ideally, it's better to use it on your melee hero, because you're a ranged hero and you even get some bonus range from Little Shredder, you can kind of always hit. But your teammate, preferably a melee hero, you know, he has to get in range. So Cookie him forward, and then he can hit immediately and then cast a spell, follow-up stun like this if he has one, or just a bunch of damage depending on what they have. And then those kind of attempts are very easy. You see he got his Clarity just in time, he's going to use it. He's used Little Shredder several times, Cookie a couple times, and only now is needing to use that Clarity he bought earlier. If you have a ranged hero, it's a little harder to use Cookie because usually ranged heroes don't want to be right on top of the enemy. In that case, It may depend on the situation. You might be tankier than a lot of ranged cores you might be partnered with, so you could do that. But another option is to actually use it on a creep. So for example here, I don't know if intentional or not, maybe it was a misclick, but it can be something you intentionally do. Crit uses the cookie on a creep. Now this can be a little dangerous because the creeps you don't control, and sometimes they lose focus. They start looking at other creeps. But if the enemy aggroes those creeps, that creep is going to like directly chase the enemy hero, and so that has actually a little bit more control for you versus maybe a pub game where you have no idea what your teammate's gonna do. And it can also catch heroes by surprise. Earlier we saw Ricky dodge it. Maybe he didn't expect it on the creep this time, or maybe it was on cooldown. I don't know. We kind of sped through this. He didn't kill him there, but you saw that was a very good trade despite all these creeps here. That's because Snapfire plus, in this case Mars, but many offlaners, many carries, is a very strong combo. And if you use these two spells together, you're going to do a lot of damage. You see here, 2 points in Little Shredder. He's going to max this, followed by the Fire Snap cookie in this game. And by the way, guys, you will miss cookies. It happens even in the pro games. It's a little tough to coordinate with your teammates, so don't feel too bad. It becomes easier to use. If you've never played Snapfire, over time it's easier. And if you play with a friend, then you can communicate it. But you will miss cookies. Don't let it bring you down. In this case, Ricky is a pretty easy kill at this point. But this is why Snapfire is good. Snapfire plus one other hero, that will frequently be a kill. Snapfire, one core, and another support, that is very dangerous. Not all supports are like that. You know, like a Warlock, it's like, oh, don't heal me, bro. Ah. But Snapfire, no matter what build she goes, she offers a lot of damage and utility, and so she's very strong in these small gank attempts that are very common right now in this meta where there's a lot of early fighting. And then with Lil Shredder, off of those kills, you might be able to pressure towers pretty quickly because, crit, why are you looking at Axe? Lil Shredder affects buildings and objectives like Roshan, end heroes, creeps, all that stuff. So once you get a kill like that, you can then have an easier time pushing objectives between the Blightstone and this Little Shredder attack armor reduction. You can also use it we saw that right there. I don't know if we'll see another example of dewarding with this. So I guess I'll show you guys this right now. Little Shredder also works on wards, so you can attack them real fast. In this case, he's denying his own sentry, which is probably not going to happen very often for you guys. Where it's a little more likely to happen is if you were denying your own observer ward. For example, you know the enemy knows that you warded there, and you know that they know, so you're like, I don't want them to get the deward. I'm going to kill my own observer, but I see the enemy coming to deward it right now. I don't have time to attack it 6 times. Boom, Little Shredder. What's more likely to happen is that when you find the enemy wards, I don't know if there's an example right here. Oh, here it works. So here there's a sentry and an observer ward. You can attack that with Little Shredder. So in this case, they're right on top of each other. It'd be hard to pick between the two, but you actually attack faster than necessary. So you'll attack 3 times to kill one observer or sentry, which only takes 2 attacks. So you have to manually stop yourself. In the end, it's not usually a big deal in most situations, but I'm just going to throw that out there. But either way, it'll allow you to deward really quickly, especially if a fight's about to break out. And you don't want to just be sitting here like slowly attacking 4 times. You can use Little Shredder to instantly remove their vision in a team fight around a cliff like this, and that can be quite impactful, especially if you're trying to stay farther back to get a good ult. It means you're not going to be close enough to use Little Shredder anyways, and so then this is another application for it. Now, here's an example of a 2-man gank, very deadly. So he even has Medallion, didn't use it in this case, didn't even need to. If you are going to go the Little Shredder build, you probably will build a Medallion into a Solar Crest, as you see him doing it here. So earlier we talked about the lane combo. Nightfall does do physical damage with God's Rebuke and has a decent right click on Mars anyways, so that tends to be pretty good. Little Shredder in the laning stage you can consider when the enemy has like 0 to 2 armor, that's ideal. 3 to 5 armor, it probably depends how much physical damage your teammate does. And then 6 onwards, it's like, maybe you're doing this QW build instead. But thinking beyond that, out of the laning stage and into the game, when is this negative armor plus Medallion going to be really good? And then the Solar Crest, when you have a carry who's going to do a lot of right-click damage, someone like Morphling, where the hell is he? Here he is. He's going to do a lot of right-click damage, and you're going to enable him. People like PA, I don't know, who else? A lot of carries like physical damage, armor reduction, you know, Drow, those kind of heroes. So in those cases, that's when you can think about this Little Shredder build rather than the QW build. Now the great thing about Snapfire's ult is that it's super long range, and that means even when you teleport in for a gank, look, he's able to contribute a bunch, he helps get that kill on Razor, and then starts moving to other targets. So this gives you a lot of flexibility. Not only we saw him be part of this gank up here, but then he can also TP in, and even though he's way back here, still instantly contributes to the fight. Compared to another support who might have to spend like 5 seconds walking in, the enemy's already gone. So that's one of the nice things about Snapfire's ult. You get to sit far back in team fights or just teleport in and then help out that way. You can also use Cookie to save your teammates because it does leap them forward. That's got a lot of aggressive potential. In this case, because Puck has the illusory orb out, he's going to be a little annoying, go stun into the enemy, get a little extra damage off. But sometimes you're not going to have a hero like that and you need to help them escape. You can use Cookie to go up and down cliffs or to just help them run away from heroes. One downside of this Little Shredder build here is that it's not very good for farming creeps. It does not offer a lot of wave clear. Cookie is not the best damage and it's going to be lower level than Little Shredder. So you can use Little Shredder to help you farm a bit. Use it to kill the range creeps. That has the most D-push effect, kind of the most bang for your buck. But yeah, you're just not going to be able to farm very well if you do this build. So if you think you need to be the one wave clearing defending buildings, then maybe you're not going to do Little Shredder max first. You don't always have to go Solar Crest first, but it is an option for Snapfire. And then you can see here, this is why this ability is pretty good. You just sit in the back, let people jump first. Mars Spear, that sets up the ult, allows him to get all this damage in. It's not a coincidence. Look at all the partners he has. He has Puck, Coil, Mars Arena, and Spear. Fiend's Grip, and then even Morphling will steal a couple of these stuns, things like that. That is all very helpful for Snapfire to land the ult. If you have nothing like that, it feels really bad trying to land an ultimate and people are just running around. And after winning a team fight, they can now consider Roshan because between Solar Crest and Little Shredder, they just have a lot of negative armor, making this kind of play a little more feasible. In fact, it doesn't look that fast in this case because these are not the best roashing heroes, but that kind of shows what this build offers. That maybe if they didn't have Snapfire, they didn't have the Solar Crest, they wouldn't be able to do this fast enough to make this viable. But between this build, they have enough time from the kills they just got to barely pick up Roshan just in time. As he rotates in here, you can kind of see what I was talking about where it's a little hard to hit the ult sometimes if no one is setting up. So he starts launching and you see like a couple shots are gonna miss, right? When it's a little harder, but once someone is locked down, it becomes very easy to just fire all the shots right there and get a ton of damage in. Now let's take a look at Insania play Snapfire 5, and he's gonna do a bit of a different build. Again, it's not because he's position 5 versus position 4. You just change your build depending on the heroes and what you need to do. In this case, he's going to go QWQ and then max Little Shredder. The reason he's not starting with Little Shredder in this lane is because take a look at Underlord. 5 armor, pretty high. Now, Wraith King does take advantage of the negative physical armor, so that is a good pairing, but Underlord's just tough. Between his Atrophy Aura and then Firestorm, you don't really want an extended trade versus Underlord, and that's what Little Shredder is good, to poke them down while they're affected by the negative armor. So Underlord's not a great fit for it. Now, Taiga is playing Dark Willow, who is a low armor hero, and that's pretty nice, but he has Shadow Realm, and that's going to mean that if you start to use Little Shredder, he can just Shadow Realm away, you don't really get your attacks off, and then he fires the hit at you. And so he gets value out of his spell, but you don't really get value out of your spell. So because of that, he's going to choose a different build. And with this different build, he's going to have different starting items. You're not going to get a Blightstone. You're just going to get more regen. And because Scatterblast and Fire Snap Cookie, these are expensive spells if you're going to use them a lot. And so he has a couple mangoes that'll provide him regen for a lot of like poke trading. But also when he needs to use both spells, and you typically do, then he has the mana for it. You see there, that's what you can do with Scatterblast. You just use it to secure creeps. That's another reason you can go with Scatterblast first, is when you have a carry who doesn't really want to secure range creeps. Wraith King's not the worst at it, but he's also not the best at it. So having Scatterblast, you can see he's kind of setting up, trying to line up so that if he does have to secure this creep, then he'll hit the Underlord as well. In that case, Underlord respected it, backed off, and so he just let Wraith King get the hit. So you can just posture aggressively with Scatterblast, and if they do, you know, they put you to the test, then you just actually hit them. Now here you can kind of see the combo. When you do get both, you still can play very aggressively. I don't think he... Oh, no, I think he is going to get the kill here. Ooh, very close. But that's nice. You see, you get to use both spells, and you never have to sit still too long just firing Little Shredder. You get to just burst both spells and then start moving. And in that case, In this way, they're able to get out of Firestorm pretty quickly and then chase down the Dark Willow for the kill. Even if they didn't get the kill, you just do that burst of damage and then get out. You don't have to sit around and hope that you get all your attacks off and sit under Firestorm, things like that. And to show you why Lil Shredder doesn't feel the best, you can see them kind of using both their spells here. It's kind of a quick fight, and then they're able to just back off. They don't have to fight under this Firestorm, and even though they both use spells, you see he's still very healthy. This is not an easy lane to get kills with, and that's kind of what you're hoping for with Lil Shredder. You don't really take Lil Shredder just to have like a passive laning stage so much. If you're going to do that, then the Scatter Blast to secure range creeps tends to be a little better. You can still play aggressive with this build. This just happens to be a tough matchup for it. Other times you can go this QW build and play aggressively. But if you are going to play passive, then odds are you might be going a QW build, at least to start, because like I said, he does start to go Lil Shredder after this. And one of the nice things about Snapfire is that she's pretty tanky because she's a strength hero. So you see Underlord, 3 levels up, is chasing her around, but she survives so long that her team has time to rotate in, and instead of being killed, she gets the kill, or her team gets the kill. So that's one of the nice things about her. You're able to stay in these lanes, in this dead lane, and defend it, and you're not too scared of being killed. Unlike certain other supports who are very fragile, you have a little more room to work with. Not to mention nice stun, attack slow, speed slow, and so you just have an easier time surviving those kind of situations. One of the issues you might run into when playing Snapfire is that her abilities want different positioning. So to use Scatter Blast, Fire Snap Cookie, and Lil Shredder, you need to be close range. To use your ultimate, you typically want to be pretty far, because if you're too close, it can be canceled, and that's pretty sad. So you like to be further back. So you do have to be careful when you want to come up and say contribute. Oh, I want to help use Lil Shredder on this building. It means you're not going to have an easy time using your ultimate. And you can see here, the enemy take advantage of that. They start this fear, and he's affected by all the abilities because he's up close, and that means he couldn't just ult there to buy Kunkka time or possibly get a return kill instead. He's caught up in the events. But of course, if he sits too far back, he can't help push the tower. So be careful. You really have to read the map a little bit to understand how dangerous it is to move up. Do you think the enemy's going to rotate in and defend? It's just something you have to think about, because you're not fully a close range hero and you're not fully a long range hero. You're stuck in this in between. So you have to decide, what do I need to do? Then if it's more important to get my ult off, I might have to stay further back. If I don't need the ult, then it's okay to be a little further forward. I want to show you something you can do with your ultimate, which is that once your team has some convenient setup to make it easier to lane your ult, like we said, this time you have Kunkka, Enigma, Black Hole, and Wraith King stun, you can get the kill, and then after that, you still have a couple shots. You don't have to just end your ultimate. So you can see he's already starting to shoot somewhere else, because you'll see it provides vision as it travels and where it lands. And so doing so, he can scout out where the enemy is to look for more kills, or you can start farming the enemy camps just by hitting them wherever the camp is, you know, here, here, here. You can just steal some farm and make the use of the remainder of the shots you have. So if you get the kill too quickly, don't just cancel it. I mean, if you have something you need to do, then feel free to cancel it. You know, it's like, oh, I gotta go cookie, I gotta go do whatever, a different fight's happening, I gotta escape before I die, then cancel the ult. But if you're not at risk and you still have some time left, try just shooting them around just to scout the enemy a little bit. Here's a quick example of de-warding with Lil Shredder. Not that he had to do it here, but it can just be safe. And I'll also talk about itemization real quick here. In this game, he went Tranquils, and now he's going into a 4-staff. Last game, they went Solar Crest into, I think, also a 4-staff. That's not like a standard build, oh, you have to have 4-staff. You just have a flexible build, and so you can do whatever you think you need. In this case, he thinks he needs a 4-staff, so he's going for that. In the last game, he needed the Solar Crest. Some other items, Glimmer's not as common on Snapfire, but if you're going to play position 5, you know, you always have to think about it. Same with like a Ghost Scepter. But some other items that have a bit more synergy with her and things she likes to do are the Blink Shard. That's another common build to get a stun on your Scatter Blast, and then the Blink to, of course, get in range to do so. That's kind of why 4-staff also works, because you might do that later and just have like a pseudo Blink. BKB into Daedalus is the meme core build. I wouldn't really recommend that in most games, but it's a pub, so if you're doing well, you want to have fun, go for it. Veil can be really good. She has a lot of spell damage. If your team has a lot of spell damage, that can be nice. She can go Guardian Greaves, Drums. I've seen Vlads, but Drums and Vlads are not as common. Kind of depends on the game. As for talents, 200 health is pretty common to take. It's just nice to make you even tankier as a support. but if you think your team might have kiting issues and Wraith King is very susceptible to that, then the Scatterblast slow can also be nice. Scatterblast damage is pretty common for 15, but if you think you need a heal, the enemy has like a Necrophos ult, Axe ult, things like that, the heal can be good, or your team just has no heals and you think could be useful. There's a lot of very close fights, then the health can be nice. But the Scatterblast damage tends to help you farm a little bit more, push out waves, things like that, get you more farm to then maybe buy a mech and heal your team that way. So Scatterblast tends to be more common at 15. Now for 20 and 25, the correct support talents are the left ones. The Mortimer Kisses slow, and then the 6 Mortimer Kisses launched. And when you use that in your ult lasts 5.5 seconds, and so it doesn't extend the duration, it just fires those extra shots faster in the same 5.5 seconds. That lets you hopefully get a kill in the late game. When your team like chain stuns them, they don't have a BKB yet, you're just firing faster, trying to get more damage out. If you are scaling because it's a pub game and you went that BKB dataless build, then you're going to go those right talents where Little Shredder uses your attack damage and it does the multi-shot. Again, very much a meme right now, but hilarious to do, so I'm going to mention it. You can take Cookie level 1, especially if it's for First Blood, or you need to save a teammate who is about to be First Blooded. Doesn't feel the best in the lane though. Typically you'd like to start Q or E in the lane, but in situations like this, it's fine to take the Cookie first. Now, if you ever do want to try to gank someone who has a way to dodge Cookie, like the spell immunity from Rage on Lifestealer, you can be the one to jump from out of sight. It gives them the least time to react. Use directional movement if you have it. Otherwise, you just have to like very carefully click, but that'll face you in the correct decision, and then just Cookie yourself in. Still not going to get the kill in this case, because it's a tough one. But actually, they should have gotten it. That was really unlucky on the spear. Never mind. But yeah, that's what you can try to do if they have a way to dodge your Cookie. Now in this game, he went E and Q first, and he actually grabbed the Shard first. That's going to help him farm faster. Cookie in this case is very hard to land against some of these heroes, and usually you get Blink first, but in this game, I'm guessing it's because there's a lot of heroes that actually close the gap on him, so he doesn't really need to blink to them and then stun. They're coming to him, and in that case, the Shard first to stun them away, maybe Cookie after that, or run away. Then I think it has a little more utility, and then it'll help him farm faster to get to the blink. Here's an example of how to use the blink shard. Easy combo if someone else lands the stun, but you can even do it on some people who don't have some kind of spell immunity, or they're just slower. Just blink next to them, use your Q, pushes them back, sets up the Fire Snap Cookie right after that. And that's kind of it, guys. Just to give you a quick recap of the skill build, the most common will be to do something like Lil Shredder, Fire Snap Cookie. This is a pretty safe talent build, but we talked about it earlier. You can push off the level 10 talent if you want. If you're not dying, you don't need the health talent, but you don't need the slow. You can push it off later, skill your Q first. If you're going to go for a Little Shredder build, you're probably building a Solar Crest and then whatever else you need from there. Another option could be to max Scatterblast first, using it to secure range creeps like we saw, and then taking Little Shredder later. Oftentimes you might take a value point in Little Shredder earlier, maybe at like level 4, or here at level 8 before then finishing up maxing Cookie and then finishing the Little Shredder later like this. We saw some different builds in the games we looked at, and there's even more variations of build. So I would probably just start with maxing 2 of them first, and then as you play the hero more, you start to figure out when different builds will be good. But I think that should be a good starting point for you guys. If you're doing a Little Shredder build, then you're probably going to want to start with a Blightstone. You don't have to, but it's typically better if you're going to do that. It is easier to do this if you're a position 4 rather than a position 5, but it is possible depending on the matchup. But you'll probably need to buy more regen. So like if you're a position 4, you can do something like this. If you're position 5, you probably have to switch out this Fairy Fire and these branches with more regen for your carry, maybe a couple sentries for the camps. If you're doing the QW build, then you want a little more regen, especially mangoes, and then depending on the matchup, maybe a stick, maybe the sentries, more regen, whatever. Later on, especially if you went the Little Shredder build, you're going to get a Solar Crest. Even if you don't do the Little Shredder build, Solar Crest can still be a very good item because eventually you will take Little Shredder points. Force Staff's very common because it helps her bridge the gap between that awkward, like, I'm long range, but I'm short range. Also, I'm a support, so I guess I'm supposed to buy utility for my teammates. Force Staff tends to cover a lot of that. And then Blink Shard as well tends to be very common for the extra stun. Some other items you can build. Veil, if you're going QW, Veil's very popular as an item right now. Not so common on Snapfire, but if it's a good game for it, you could do that. This isn't exactly in order, by the way, guys. Drums is a little less common. If you really need a Glimmer because you're probably the position 5, Ag's not super common, but you can do it. Same with like Guardian Greaves. The reason this one's a little awkward, and some of these are as well, is because it's weird, right? I'm a long-range hero, but I need to be in the fight to use this Drums, to use this Guardian Greaves. But I'm also good in close-range fights, so that's why these work out. So a little awkward. Some of these are pretty niche depending on what the game calls for, but you have a flexible build, so you can do any of that. So hopefully, guys, that gives you a good starting point if you've never played Snapfire, or maybe you learned a thing or two if you are a Snapfire player. Let me know. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.